3, 2, 1. Welcome back, guys. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and we are in part 4 of the 5-part series, where we are going to talk about the last gang, the grimy Goons.
Yes, and this is the tier list review. If you've poked into part 4 for some reason without watching the earlier parts, at least start at part 2. Part 1's kind of separate about the meta. We review all the cards, and talk about like how to play these classes and where they're ranked. And I'm getting more hyper as this late night goes on. I don't know why, but I really am. So we're going to power through this, and we are going to do the grimy Goons, which is actually really interesting, right? Because Blizzard came up with 2 new mechanics for this expansion. And one of them is the Jade, which we talked about, but that's pretty straightforward to play. Like, you just play Jade, right? It's kind of tricky of how you value things in a draft, but Jade cards are generally pretty good. You generally just take them and then you just play them. There's no tricks to them. But the grimy Goons mechanic actually is tricky. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to just start with the card and then we'll work our way there?
You know what? Like we've done with the other videos, let's focus in on one of the try cards and then use that to explain. Perfect. So let's look at Grime Street Smuggler, right? Grime Street Smuggler is one of the tri-cards that's available to Hunters, Paladins, and Warriors. It's a 3-mana, 2/4 with Battlecry. Give a random minion in your hand +1/+1.
Okay, I will say this. Someone in Twitch chat asked right before this in our little Q&A that we do in between in recording each of these sessions, who the hottest girl in MSG is. It's a candidate right here. Grime Street Smuggler.
This is the 2 a.m. getting to you, man. Anyways. The Grime Street Smuggler, I guess I'm just not seeing what you're seeing. Anyways, Grime Street Smuggler, the mechanic in which you're giving a minion in your hand a buff. This is the mechanic, this is the theme that we're going to see with the Grimy Goons, in which you probably give up a little bit of stats or a little bit of tempo on the minion that you play and gain it back with a minion in your hand. So 3-mana, 2/4, understated definitely, but you gain +1/+1. So if at the end you categorize it as like a 3/5, then you definitely get more of the value. But
like it's not tempo that's out on the board yet. Like it's
exactly
delayed. So it's like Death Rattle almost, right? You can kind of think of it that way. But is it really delayed? That's the question, and that is what makes this mechanic so interesting, because it may not be, like, you could think of it as it's just a little anti-tempo, and then you lose the board, right? We're going back to these themes. And you lose the board with the mechanic, and then you'll gain it back later, because you're storing that tempo out. Or you can look at, and this card's also bad because there's a 4/3 meta going on, and this is a 2/4. All 2/4s are kind of crappy right now. Like, you'll see 2/4s rated pretty low in our tier list for that, like, all down the line, because it's like, there's 4/3s everywhere. Why would you 2/4? Don't do that. But where this could really, really help you is if you get the tempo out on the same turn you play it for your turn 8 push. So you play this card, you play a 5-drop, all of a sudden your 5-drop has +1/+1, and you know what happens the next turn? Whatever other minions you happen to have in your deck, you can just play the next turn and they will also get more tempo. So not only do you not lose tempo on the turn, you so not lose. Oh, it's just one random minion. Never mind. I thought it was a Paladin mechanic. Okay, fine. So you just don't lose tempo on the turn. You actually gain tempo. Because how much does 3 mana usually give you? It gives you 7 stats, right? It's like a mechanical spider for a 3/4. But now you get
spider tank.
Yeah, spider tank, which is a 3/4. But now you get a 2/4, and then you get 2 more stats on your bigger thing that you put out. So you can gain tempo from this. I know we set it up on turn 3, you play it, you lose some tempo, but it's okay because you're going to gain it back later. You could just have a pure tempo gain on this turn 8 push, and all the cards that are I don't even know what to call this mechanic. Buff hand buffs.
Hand buffs.
Okay.
Hand buffs. Yeah.
So you want this hand buff mechanic to be played on turn 8, if at all possible, or later, when you can play more cards. You'll see, especially with the Paladin, you're going to get more and more of these, and you'll see why it's better to play them later on, which is kind of weird because most people you'll see. People think about playing them way earlier. But anyway, new hand buff mechanic, very exciting mechanic. You've seen this before in Light in the Darkness. But that one you don't get to pick, right? You just get a random minion with it. Now you get to kind of set things up, which is another thing, right? You can control which one this one goes on. If you dump all your other minions, you can make sure it gets on the Acolyte of Pain or whatever. Which is also why our tier list gives bonuses now in Paladin and whatever for Acolyte of Pain.
Sure, sure. When you say you don't get to pick for Light in the Darkness, you're saying it always sticks on the Light in the Darkness minion.
Yeah, you don't get to
Right.
pick which minion.
Right. But you do get to pick the minion in Light in the Darkness. I just want to make sure that people got that. Yeah. Because it sounded different. Anyways, that's the mechanic. So you're going to see hunters, paladins, and warriors sort of playing these minions and also banking these stats and sort of investing these stats onto the minions in their hand. So let's also look at the rare card. So Grime Street Smuggler was the common card. The rare card in this gang is the Grime Street Informant. 2 mana for 1/1 Battlecry. Discover a hunter, paladin, or warrior card. Typical sort of, we've seen this theme.
Do we even say how much the Grime Street Smuggler, by the way, is a 47? Which means it's still below average, but it's mostly because of the 2/4 stat line. Like, if you want to look at other 2/4s, like Goblin Sapper is a 41. So the Grime Street Smuggler's ability is actually worth like a ton. It's just that the 2/4 body is so bad in this meta. That's our prediction going in. A lot of things are based on that. Okay, going back to the Grime Street Informant, which is at a much higher 59.
Yeah. So this is discover a hunter, paladin, or warrior card, right? Like, this is like one of the cards that you can compare it to is a novice engineer. Novice engineer, you basically filter through drafting. This you filter through discover. But like we said, class cards are going to be better than neutral cards. So the quality of the card that you pick is going to be better than one that you normally draft.
If you wonder how good Grime Street Informant at 59 is, it's even better than a Loot Hoarder, which is at 55. We said it's definitely better than a what do you call Novice Engineer, which is a 48. Like, that's not Discover, and it's not a class card. What's it doing? Why is it even in this game? No, it's just that Grime Street Informant is really good, and you're gonna take it a lot.
Yep.
It's okay. Not much more to say about that. It's Biofin Tidehunter levels of good. Amani Berserker levels of good. That's a pretty good.
Afterwards, we got the legendary Don Honcho, 7 mana, 5/6 minion, Battlecry. Give a random minion in your hand, +5/+5. Very simple mechanic. They didn't try to get fancy with this. They're like, all right, let's take our mechanic and just
amp it up.
Amplify it. Yep, that's it.
Don Honcho is a 57. It is a little better than a Yeti. Because a lot of times you can't play it on the same term as your other card, because the other card has to be 3 mana or below. So the other card will be a little anti-tempo, and it gives a random minion in your hand +5/+5. If you're giving a minion +5/+5, you kind of want to pick it. And so it has a lot of like potential issues. If you top deck it, you can't play it for a turn, and then you have to hope that you like draw into a minion rather than a spell or a weapon or something. Like, it has its issues, but if you can like kind of play it even like on curve or on turn like 9 or 10 with the other minion out, it becomes pretty good in terms of the tempo, right? But if you play it on turn 7, it does this turn 8 push we're talking about. Anyway, legendary, doesn't matter much.
Doesn't matter much. So these are the tri-class cards for the Grimy Goons. Now we can sort of dig into the specific classes.
Oh, yes. And the Grimy Goons is the Paladin mechanic. We will get to the Warrior, we will get to the Hunter, but they're not as grimy and they're not as goony as the Paladin is. At least the Paladins of Gadgetzan. Paladins are generally like noble, like, I don't know, like warriors, right?
But then they have secrets and they have an army of Murlocs, which is...
That's true. That's kind of shady.
It's kind of shady, man. Anyways, Paladins are the class we're going to touch upon first, and it sort of makes sense. Paladins are, we typically associate them as minion-based and, sort of buff-based.
Yes, they're minion-based, they're buff-based, and they're the best class in the arena of the 3 that are the Goons. All right, let's start. What's your first card?
All right, first card is Grimscale Chum.
Grimscale Chum is how much mana?
1 mana, 2/1, Battlecry, give a random Murloc in your hand, +1/+1, and it is a Murloc
amped
itself.
up the crowd for how great this mechanic is, and this is the cards you start with.
Yeah, well, look, people love, they want that buffed up Murloc Tiny Fin, you know?
It's a bad card. It's a 38. It's pretty much like a Murloc Raider, but like a tiny bit better. Let's move on.
As it should be. Second card is, this is an interesting card. Smuggler's Run. 1 mana spell. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1.
This is a super divisive card because as soon as it came out, people are like, "This is the most amazing card ever." You play it on turn 1, then you play a spider tank on turn 2, then you play a Yeti on turn 3, and then you're like, "Oh my god, I win this game." So here's the sad truth: you're not gonna have a spider tank on turn 2 because you're not gonna have this card and a croc on turn 1. /2. You're not going to follow that up with a spider tank that you're going to turn into a Yeti. That's not going to happen. It's going to happen very, very, very rarely. And you're going to get this card on turn 1 very, very, very rarely, no matter how much you mulligan for it. What this card is instead going to be is you are going to play it on a later turn when you either don't curve out or you want a specific, you want to give like a particular card you're playing +1/+1. Like, let's say you have a Yeti, it's turn 5. Well, you have a Pit Fighter now on turn 5. That's pretty good, right? And then on top of that, all the minions in your hand, you will be able to tempo out later for your turn 8 push. So that's how you play this card. And it's good, but don't think you can curve out with it. It is going to end up being a 52.
Pretty average card.
Pretty average card. You'll take it. It's better than some. It's better than a Croc. It's worse than a Raptor. It will probably end up giving you more tempo than the 1 mana would warrant, but almost all 1 mana cards actually, like 1 mana spells, actually give you more tempo than 1 mana.
Yeah. So I think this card, it definitely plays into the theme. Paladins also have a lot of cheap cards, right? Like they are these. I wouldn't call them the swarm deck, but they definitely have a lot of token plays and token potentials. So the Smuggler's Run definitely plays into that as well. Anyways, moving on to
this is the mechanic. Like, I want people to know how to play this mechanic because this is the most interesting mechanic when it comes to playing, when it comes to drafting. You don't want, you can't draft a deck that's super big with these kinds of buffs because they're never going to come out. They're going to be too late. Like, you're going to be dead. And you can't draft a deck that's too small with these cards because you're going to start top decking them. They're going to come in later when you don't have a lot of cards in your hand because if you have a lot of small things, they all leave your hand very quickly and then you have nothing to buff. So you actually need this very well crafted mid-rangey kind of deck or even late mid-rangey deck. And then you kind of want to play all your big cards. Like, you want to play a 5 mana on turn 5 instead of a 2 and a 3. You want to play a 6 mana on turn 6 instead of a 2 and a 4. So you save all those cards that are minions. And then you Smuggler's Run and you dump. And then the next turn you dump some more. And all of a sudden you have 5 more tempo on the board than you should over 2 turns. And you steamroll your opponent from there. Even if you were just kind of vaguely on the board or not on the board before. So this is this weird comeback mechanism for the Paladin that just didn't have before. Right? So now the Paladin can sort of lose the board and still sort of have a chance. Whereas it couldn't do that before. Just, if you don't get on the board and buff.
Yep. So ADWCTA's advice to winning with Paladin is take 2 huge dumps. That's basically it. All right. Next card, Grime Street Outfitter. 2 mana, 1/1 with Battle Cry. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Wow, it's almost as if we've seen a similar effect in a recently reviewed card, isn't it? Yeah. So it's interesting that this comes right after Smuggler's Run because it's a Smuggler's Run with a body attached to it.
I'm going to check to make sure that this is actually the right one. I think there may have been some kind of input error here. I don't think this is actually that bad. It's showing up on this. So if you guys don't know, we put it in the tier list. This thing just came up right before we did this video. We couldn't wait. So we couldn't catch all the possible input issues. So this is a 45 right now. I think it should be a bit higher than that. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll look into this one. I'm gonna mark it. It's okay. So obviously it's going. Actually, no. You know what? I take that back. It actually looks right. I don't know what I was thinking when I was doing with it. I think because I was talking of Smuggler's Run so much and how to use the mechanic. In my mind, I thought it was a 60, but no, it's a 52. And so therefore, yeah. The Grime Street Outfitter is a 45 because it's going to be worse than the 1 mana card, right? You're paying an extra mana to get a 1/1 on the board, which is not like the worst thing in the world, but it's not like exactly ideal. And much more importantly than that, it makes it much more difficult to do the dump that I was talking about. Right? You're now at 2 mana instead of 1, and that's really affecting it.
Yep, you want to take easy dumps, guys. There you go. All right, so these are the common cards. Let's take a step back and think, what does this mean for the Paladin?
Okay,
right?
and I'm going to put this in context, just in case people didn't get the numbers when it comes to Smuggler's Run. Smuggler's Run is 52. That's the number. That's the same number as Avenge. It is a tiny bit higher than Blessing of Might and Noble Sacrifice. Like, and that's about where you have it. It's one of those, like, now, like, Paladin basically has one more 1 mana card at that, like, area, where a lot of their 1 mana cards are, where it's like, it's good tempo. You like it, it's useful. You can't take too many of them in a deck, though, or else it breaks your deck. So that's where that is. And the Grime Street Outfitter is 45, which is near the bottom of 2 mana cards. There's a lot of, like, 50 is the center point, right? It's like half the cards are better than 50, half the cards you're going to take are worse than 50. But 2 mana is in such high demand that, like, almost all 2 mana cards are like 50 or better. So that it's a 45 makes it really low among 2 mana cards. It's a tiny bit above Lance Carrier for what good that makes it. But yeah, for 2 mana, you generally want a drop. So that's where it is. 45, if I were to compare it to a 4 mana card, 45 is like where Gorillabot A3 is. Seems about right. Is that kind of like utility card, the Grime Street Outfitter? Yeah. Okay.
This is something we'll obviously run through all of these and double check. But anyways, you see a very common theme. All 3 Paladin common cards buff stuff in your hand. They're also very small cards. So you're going to use these as sort of the catalyst for your deck, right? These are small and these provide the buffs. And you're going to need the rest of your deck to receive the buffs. So look, at least Paladin has a centralized theme. They have cards that work towards this, this unifying theme. Paladin's going to be, okay. Like,
okay, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it's like, okay. And for those,
they're not that powerful, right? One's a 52, one's like a 45, one's unplayable.
Unfortunately, for those of you who care about having fun, it's not going to be that fun to play. Paladin, like this kind of stuff where you
underestimate how much fun taking dumps are.
I really do. But
just one turn, you get like +2/+2, and the next turn you get another +2/+2, and you're like, oh, I got him.
Got him. Just toss it all out there. So that's the problem I see with Paladin. Like right now, I don't see them as a fun class anyways, and this just adds more to the pure stats, and then you toss it out there, you see what happens.
What you need, what these things are really good for, is you got to buff the right minion. You got to have like buffable minions. Acolyte of Pain I brought up. You have this new card called Doppelganger. That's a rare card. Doppelgangster, sorry. It's a 5 mana 2/2, summon 2 copies of this minion. It's so easy to get it to trigger on this if you're a Paladin, and then all of a sudden you have a 5 mana 9/9 essentially split up, which is kind of crazy, right? You just set it up at any point. And it's not like buff a random minion. You buff all your minions by +1/+1. You can guarantee this to trigger. So, like, yeah, maybe you won't get your Spider Tank on turn 2 and your Yeti on turn 3, but if you just have a Doppelgangster in your hand and then any other thing, on turn 5, you're going to get a 9/9 with no downside.
Yep.
Like, that's pretty game-winning. So that's the things you kind of have to set up. Other good targets are, like, taunts, things with Divine Shield, just like anything with an ability attached to it. Like, if you think Cult Master is like a little weak at 2 health, you buff it up once or twice, it gets a little bigger. There's things you can do here.
Yep. All right, so I think that's enough information. We can move on to the rare cards. The first rare card for Paladin is another secret. Who doesn't want more 1 mana secrets? Getaway Kodo.
Okay, after we go through the rare cards, I want to share another secret for how to play the Paladin in this new
meta. But that's how we play, which we typically do after rares anyways,
that's true.
Right? So Getaway Kodo is a secret. When a friendly minion dies, return it to your hand. I'm curious to know the score for this.
It's a 40.
Yeah.
So it's not good, but you do get a card back.
You
So,
do.
like, it's not totally awful.
No, it just sort of, and it's not like the polymorph potion as well in that it's basically exactly the same as other secrets. There's slight differences, right? It's not exactly like redemption, and it's certainly not like avenge in that way. But at the same time, it is easy to play around, and even when you get the effect off, you're really hoping for that like game-winning minion, right? But then you have to replay it again. It's just not that great. And one mana secrets, like how great can they be, right? I think Avenge is really pushing it in terms of like the best we can see out of a secret like that.
Yep.
Anyways, next card is the Grime Street Enforcer, 5 mana 4/4. At the end of your turn, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. What a novel concept. What's the score?
The score is a 46. What a novel score. So all of these scores, it's the same mechanic. They value it the same way. Blizzard did a pretty good job making sure all these guys in the Paladin are kind of like just there in terms of the value.
Yeah.
And you really got to combo it with like stuff in your hand, like Doppelgangster or like Acolyte of Pain, to make them do stuff, right? But like the combos are real though, right? Like think of like a questing adventure with one of these. Like there's a lot of things you can do. Steward of Darkshire. I'm just reading cards I'm literally seeing on this page. Like there's plenty of cards that will get some extra value if you buff it in this way.
Yep. All right, and now we get to, oh my gosh, what might be one of my favorite cards, if not the my absolute favorite card.
I'm gonna actually jump ahead. Once we do this card, I'm gonna jump ahead to a warrior card.
Sure.
You know what I'm doing.
Yeah, but okay. Anyways, we're talking about the Grime Street Protector here. Everything about this card is awesome, from the stats to the effects to the artwork. Just the flavor of this card. It's a 7 mana 6/6 taunt with Battle Cry. Give adjacent minions Divine Shield. That's ridiculous. What's the score for this?
It's a 69.
Yeah. Okay, 69. We even have the meme for the scores. Like everything's perfect about this card.
It is like just better than anything else at 7 mana. It's better than anything else besides weapons generally for the Paladin.
Yep.
It's below a Doppelgangster. So one of the things with Paladin is that Doppelgangster is so easy to trigger, and it is so good for the Paladin in this meta.
Easy.
That it is just like the best card ever. Like, you may be looking at the Paladin and you're thinking, the class cards aren't that great. But you're going to see them so much, and you're going to take like some of them. Which means that if you ever see a Doppelgangster, which although rare does have the offering bonus, and it is a neutral card, just take it. You will buff it. Just hold it in your hand until you buff it. Maybe once, maybe twice, who knows, right? And then you play it, and then you win the game. That's like all you have to do with the Doppelgangster. So Grime Street Protector, as amazing as it is, still doesn't quite top Doppelgangster, but it's pretty much better than anything else outside of weapons that the Paladin has. Like, your muster for battles are going to be better. Okay, Consecration is better. Your 2-drops are better, right? Your Shield of Minibots, your Argent Protectors, your Aldor Keeper. You know what? There's a lot of cards in Paladin that are actually better than this card because Paladin has a lot of OP cards. I forgot which class I was talking about because I was like 69 is really good. And then I remember this is the Paladin, and they actually do have a whole ton of overpowered cards. But this will join the ranks, right?
This just joins all of them. I can't believe they gave it Taunt, right?
Hey, how else are it going to protect people? Just by giving it shields?
That's true. That's true.
It's a mob lawyer. This guy's a mob lawyer. Needs to be paid a lot, 7 mana, and he does his job very well. And we're going to compare this to a warrior card, just purely for flavor, just to see what the warrior has, you know. So the paladin gets the kind of the defense attorney, the private defense attorney, which is a giant 6/6 taunt for 7 mana and gives divine shields to everyone. The warrior gets a common card, a public defender, which this is a common warrior card, and it's going to be a theme in the warrior of just crap.
Oh,
it's 2 mana 07 taunt. That's all public defender does.
Wow.
So that's the difference between a rich class and a poor class. Blizzard is just making sure you learn your lessons, you know, in the game of Hearthstone before you apply it to real life.
And this is why crime is still rampant. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the public defender going up against the Grime Street Protector.
Hey, it takes the Grimy Street Protector 2 hits to kill a public defender, not one fell swoop.
That's true. And the Divine Shield is even useless because the public defender doesn't even knock off that Divine Shield.
Exactly.
Wow.
So well matched.
Anyways, so now that we've gone through the rares, you said you had some further advice.
I do have further advice. Okay, so this is how you use the buff hand mechanic, right? I outlined ways in which you...
buff mechanic. Okay.
Okay, the hand buff mechanic, the buff hand mechanic, whatever. Turn 8 push, right? Well, we talked about that before. You play it, you play another minion, blah, blah, blah. But there's another way to do it, which I had hinted at in the beginning, but I don't know if I fully fleshed it out, which is you play it on a curve turn with a lower curve card so that the next turn you will have an over curved card. So let's say you have 2/2 drops, and turn 2 you play a 2. Okay, you're not really gonna have 2/2 drops in this meta because there's no 2 drops. But you have 2/3 drops, much more likely. You have 2/3 drops. 3 drops are kind of not very good outside of turn 3. You play 1 on turn 3, which is fine. And then on turn 4, you don't play a 4 drop. You play, even if you have the same, right? If you have like a spider tank and like a mech yeti, instead of playing the mech yeti, you play the spider tank with your smuggler's run, right? Or you play the smuggler's run first, obviously. So then you do end up with a 4/5. But then the next turn, you get to play your pit fighter or your spiteful smith or whatever, and that's now over tempoed, and that will hold the entire board for you. And unless your opponent does something crazy, it'll let you get the board. And so you can do that way earlier than turn 8 and still get the tempo in the same way. So that's the best way to do it if your hand works out for that. So like definitely always be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Especially because that's why the Paladin cards are so low, right? That's why it's 1 mana and 2 mana. So you get to do this kind of stuff like in the mid game to take control of the board. And that's really where the Paladin's going to shine in this meta. It's going to be that like early mid game if you manage the Smuggler's Run or to Grime Street Outfitter. And then it's going to be in this like turn 8, turn 9 zone where you manage to like just start dumping your hand. Remember, you can't be too big or else these mechanics don't work. You can't be too small or else these mechanics don't have a chance to work. So you got to get to the right spot and then you dump your hand and you go and you try not to like lose your board because then you
lose everything to Fellfire Potion.
Exactly.
Dragonfire Potion.
The bad part is you do have 3 classes that kind of perfectly counter this method, and they're like the best classes.
Yeah.
This is a way to beat Shaman. This is a way to beat Rogue. You could luck out, right? Like your Warlocks don't necessarily have high board clears. That is a rare card. Your Priests don't necessarily have large board clears. Those are like rare and epic. So it is something to do. Look, you gotta take what you can, right? Like Paladin's not in a good place. The whole buff hand mechanic is not great for the arena.
The problem with Paladin for the past few expansions has always been Paladin needs either initiative in the early game or independently slightly OP minions, right? Like Shielded Mini is more than slightly OP. Like it is just ridiculously overpowered. But that in combination with stuff like Muster for Battle, like its initiative and strong minions, like that kind of stuff is what pushes Paladin over the top. This stuff in which you sort of save stuff up and then you dump stuff onto the board, that's not how Paladins win.
Yep.
It doesn't help their current win condition, which is, if you remember 2 videos ago, we were talking about
also known as 2 hours ago.
Also known as 2 hours ago. We were talking about how do these cards fit into their current win condition, right? Because if it takes them in a completely different direction, or if it takes them into a direction that they don't like to go, then the cards better be really freaking good to make up for that. And this is not really the direction that Paladin wants to go. They want to snowball on the board. They don't want to snowball in hand.
They're like average cards.
Yeah.
It's just everything's not working for them. All right, let's see epics.
Yeah. Anyways, epic cards. First epic card is Mean Street Marshal, 1 mana, 1/2. I kind of like the flavor of this and sort of the fact that he's a walrus.
I was about to say, you just like that he's a Tuskar.
Yeah, kind of. Tuskars are just awesome. Anyways, Death Rattle.
We're like opposites. You like Tuskars, I like Taurens.
Okay, I don't like Tuskars in the way that you like Taurens. Oh no! Don't lump me with your weird tendencies. Okay, I do not like Tuskars the same way you like Taurens.
I like Taurens the normal way.
No, that's not the normal way. Mean Street
Right.
Marshal, Death Rattle. If this minion has 2 or more attack, draw a card. What's the tier score for this?
67. It is an insanely good card because you will draw a card. You will draw a card because you will buff this. And if you don't buff it with a hand buff, you will buff it with a board buff. Because you're a Paladin. And damn it, before this thing dies, it will be buffed. Or else you don't play it.
Right. So here's the way to look at it. If it does draw a card, its value is insane, right? Like really, really good. If it doesn't draw a card, its value is really low. But the percentage with the offering bonus and in this expansion to either buff it in your hand or buff it on the board is very high, which is why it is the score that it currently has.
Yes.
Yep.
And remember, you're trying to dump your hand at a certain point. You know what's really good for dumping your hand? A 1-mana card that gets buffed.
Afterwards.
Oh, yeah, and refilling your hand afterwards to like keep the momentum going for an extra turn. Like, this is just, it is a perfect card for what this whole mechanic tries to do. And this is what you'll see with the Paladin. The hand buff cards are not all that good, but because of the, like, that they're okay and they're offered a lot and you're going to take them and there's so many of them and they buff everything so you'll never, like, miss a buff. All the cards that can use these buffs really well become really good in the Paladin. And that was something we had to do in the tier list.
Yep. So, next card is Small Time Recruits, 3-mana epic spell, which draws 3 1-cost minions from your deck. Score.
34.
Yeah.
Bad.
So you have to have 3 1-mana minions left, right?
Yeah.
Minions.
You know how many 1-mana minions the Paladin has?
Not that many. Hopefully you're not drafting a lot of Grimscale chums.
Like,
Hopefully.
Yeah, it's a non-functional card in the arena.
Right.
This is what's going to be like removed immediately once this meta's over. Like, they haven't removed any cards for the Paladin because they think it's in a good place. It will no longer be in a good place, even for like average players by the time this meta's over, and especially not for average players because the hand buff mechanic is like a difficult mechanic. So I know you're like all hating on the Paladin or whatever, and I'm with you. It's like one of the least skilled classes. But like they've made it more skilled. They've actually managed to make the Paladin require a lot of skill. Jade doesn't require any skill. Double-sided board clears do require some, like Warlock definitely requires skill. Priest really doesn't require skill, but we always knew that. But what does now? Paladins, because of the hand buff mechanic. It requires skill to draft, it requires skill to play. Like, Paladin has definitely moved on my list from like second most brainless class to like right up there with like some of the toughest classes to play. Yep.
All right. So we get to the legendary Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. Just really cool name. 3 mana, 2/2 with Divine Shield and Taunt. Damage dealt by this minion also heals your hero. Score.
75. It is really good because it has a Divine Shield, it has a Taunt, and it heals you. I'm like literally just describing this thing, but like if you have a Divine Shield, like think about the Knight, the 3-mana Knight guy. Silent Knight, right? It's a Divine Shield, 2/2, it's stealth. This one's Taunt, and like taunts and stealth are pretty similar in value. Like I think, like especially for small things. And then on top of that, you get at least 4 health, and possibly more.
You know, they could ping it off and do whatever, but yeah, most of the time you're probably getting like 4 health from it. That's pretty good. Like that's a good package out of this. Yeah, it's going to be appropriately annoying. It's going to heal you for a decent amount. Good card.
Because remember, if you're like double taunting, what are you probably doing? You probably want some health. You know what this guy does? He gives you some health.
There you go.
All right. That's enough for the Paladin. What are we doing next?
We are going to Warrior.
Warrior. Okay.
We already touched upon Warrior a little bit, but we're going to go to the Warrior. We're first going to talk about one of my favorite cards, flavor-wise. Just I mean, everything about
So we already talked about Public Defender, and we already realized that it sucked. It's a 31. It sucks.
Public Defender is a 31. But I want to talk about I Know a Guy, which is a 1-mana warrior common spell which says discover a taunt minion. What's the score for this card?
It is a 51.
So basically, you discover a taunt minion. Taunt minions are good, right? Like they are quite good. You get to discover one.
Especially warrior ones. Warrior has some good class ones.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's kind of a shame you don't get the Obsidian Destroyer, though, because it doesn't itself taunt.
Right.
But taunt minions are usually pretty good. It's just a little bit unfortunate that you are sort of, investing one more mana to find it, right? To find the card. But definitely draftable. Do you have any more comment on this card?
Nope. It's definitely draftable. You can compare it to, like, let's say, Rogue for the Journey Below, which is a bit higher, but that's because Rogue has combos, and Journey Below at least helps you trigger a combo. But Death Rattle is also very good. You look over here at Warrior, you have taunts, good, but you don't have combos to trigger.
Nope. All right, so now you're looking at this and be like, I know a guy is average / like meh. Public Defender is just really low.
Yeah, I know a guy used to be better before there was this Public Defender guy.
Sad, isn't it? Sorry.
You discover class cards 4 times as often as regular cards.
Yep. So the fact that Public Defender is there to...
It's really bad for I know a guy.
Yeah, really bad. But anyways... Next, we have the Grimy Gadgeteer, a 4-mana 4/3, and at the end of your turn, give a random minion in your hand +2/+2.
Sorry, I was thinking that Public Defender, I think Blizzard's trying to say that the Public Defender is a guy you don't want to know.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Okay, it's officially past 2 a.m.
That's probably the most insightful thing you guys will hear in these videos now. But Grimy Gadgeteer, 4-mana, 4/3 minion. End of your turn, give a random minion in your hand, +2/+2. What are you giving up on the initial body, right? You're giving up +2 health, or just plus two stats somewhere. 2 stats distributed randomly, and in return you get 4 stats onto a minion in your hand.
For later on.
Yeah, for later on. What's the score for this one?
It's a 52. Now,
yeah.
A lot of people think it's better than that. It's not. Because remember what I said, half the point of playing these cards is you either try to snowball your curve or you try to dump it all in one turn. You can't dump this card. It doesn't buff Battlecry. It's at the end of your turn. It forces you to not be able to do this turn 8 push that you need to win. And so you got to kind of keep it alive. But how do you keep it alive? You need some kind of a board usually. And how do you get a board? This guy loses you the board. This guy loses you the board while requiring a board. Like, he takes so much protection, he takes so much coddling to be able to, like, get more than just the +2/+2. And if he just gets the +2/+2, it's fine, but you better hope it triggers on a minion you could play the next turn.
Right.
And you don't know that unless you, like, set up your hand the right way, and then it's, like, way towards, like, the end of the game. It's just so awkward. Like, the upside is huge. But if you're a warrior and you're keeping this thing alive, this 4-mana card, like, it's like if you keep a Cult Master alive, right? Yes, you are going to win the game if you keep a Cult Master alive for multiple turns. But you're not going to do it.
Yep. All right. So now that the common cards have been sort of established, man, Warriors, ever since you specifically spearheaded Arena Warriors Matter, I know it seems like so long ago, and it kind of was a long time
over a year ago.
But every single expansion Warriors have gotten at least one good common tool, right? Like in terms of weapons.
Is an understatement.
Yeah, they've gotten premium cards.
Well, we'll go backwards. Fool's Bane was the last one. It's a 106. It is like the highest rated common card by far in this entire game on our tier list. Going back one, what did it get before that? N'Zoth's First Mate.
N'Zoth's First Mate. Where was Ravaging Ghoul?
Ravaging Ghoul is a 72.
Yep.
So also, like, they break the tier list. Like, anything over 70 is ridiculous. Anything over 80 is not even, like, it shouldn't even be there. Like, our scale is so compressed into the middle, in the 50, that if you're ever, like, below 30 or like above 80, you should not be a card.
Yeah. And also, like, we've gotten Blood to Ichor recently, right?
We have Obsidian Destroyer, which was the first.
And Fierce Monkey. Yep.
And Fierce Monkey. That was like the start of the, crap, Warrior suck in a reel, let's do something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And these are all just coming at you really fast, each with their offering bonus. There hasn't been a meta without an offering bonus to these insane cards until like the Karazhan one just disappeared.
Yeah. So, look, Warriors had a great run. They were propped up. I've had a lot of success with Warriors recently. You know, a lot of people have seen the power of...
Yeah, Merps just went 3-12 wins in a row, followed by a 10 win, all Warrior. 12 wins in a row.
And that would have been laughable a year ago, right? Like, definitely laughable. Now, people are like, oh, you know, good job. That's cool, but it's definitely a doable feat now.
Yep.
So, yeah, unfortunately, Warriors will take a step back and, you know, a large step back.
Step back. There's nothing here.
There's not much here. But
this is like Paladin, right? Doesn't this look familiar? Right. Something around the 50s, something around the 50s, and a really crappy card?
Right. But Warrior has had a good sort of string of expansions, and like, you know, this is fair, right? Mm-hmm. This is fair. Yep. They can't always get a great expansion, so we'll just see what's in store for them next expansion.
They're going to be the worst class this expansion. They're back at the bottom. Like, I think they're at the very bottom, or Druids at the very bottom, but they're going to be sharing that kind of spot because it's so bad.
It'll be pretty close. Yeah. Anyways,
and if you're wondering why, like, this is not even, like, the Paladin at least has, like, those two cards, the 1 mana and 2 mana cards that, like, synergize with the whole, like, thing, right? So they could pick a Doppelgangster and it'll be amazing. They could pick, like, you know, any, like, Acolyte of Pains, any Divine Shields. Like, a lot of things work for them. The Warrior has one card, and one card makes a pretty sad synergy. So, yes, and these are cards you're not necessarily going to take. You have so many cards above here that you'll take over it. Your other card that's decent doesn't synergize with it. Well, sort of, right? It gives a taunt. You do want to give taunt minion stats, but, like, it's not really something that gives stats. So, yeah, it's a grimy goon mechanic, but it doesn't work as well for the Warrior. You'll see the same thing in the Hunter. It doesn't work as well in the Hunter. They just didn't design it with that in mind.
Nope. All right. With that being said, I think we can move on to the rare cards. It doesn't get much better, guys. It gets a little bit better.
First rare card.
First rare card, Stolen Goods. Doesn't get much better.
Okay.
Stolen Goods.
Do you want to know what number this is?
Well, I'll describe it first, and you can tell me the score. Stolen Goods is a 2-mana rare spell. Give a random taunt minion in your hand +3/+3. What is it?
Pick a number.
18.
Oh my god. Are you really not looking at the tier list right now?
I'm not. Did I
get
it?
Holy crap, it's 18.
Oh, yeah, I'm not good.
Wait. Are you serious? Is chat telling you? Chat's not even telling you. Oh my god. You just really guessed a number around that range?
Yeah, I just guessed it.
Oh, wow.
God, I'm so good at this.
So you internalize the algorithm.
I am the algorithm. Oh,
you are the formula. Okay.
It's all this.
So yeah, Stolen Goods. That's epically bad. Again, there's not like many cards below it, like Ancient Watchers below it. Summoning Stone for Warriors, because they have weapons, not spells, is below it. But yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't think that needs further analysis. Next card, actually the card, Grime Street Pawnbroker.
Yes.
3-mana, 3/3, Battlecry. Give a random weapon in your hand, +1/+1. What's the score for this one? I'm expecting something high.
This is 66.
Oh, yeah.
This is right next to Frothing Berserker. This is above all of your, like, common, like, 4-drops. This is, 3-drops. This is tied with Piloted Shredder. Like, this is a premium card. It's not, like, breaking the game like, you know, some of the other cards that you've seen from Priest and Warlock Arm. Yeah. But it's up there. Warrior has so many great cards that after the meta is over, this is not going to make that big of an impact. But it's like Blood to Ichor, better than Blood to Ichor. And that's because giving a weapon +1/+1 means you give it an extra charge. You just, like, created an extra removal. Not only made your removal better, but created an extra one on top of it.
Yep. So, yeah, really good card. Warriors basically need weapons to win in the arena. And yeah, I mean, this just, even if you don't get to buff a weapon, a 3-mana 3/3, it's playable in the arena.
Right? Why? Because this 4/3 meta is here.
Yep.
And when you have a 4/3 meta, your 3/3s look pretty okay.
Hitting those themes. All right. Next card is the Alley Armorsmith, a 5-mana 2/7 minion with taunt, and whenever this minion deals damage, gain that much armor. So, yes, it's understated, right? It's understated. It has taunt, and it helps you gain armor. It's basically just like a delay mechanic, a heal, whatever you want to, like however you want to look at it. What's the score here?
It is a 54. It is a above average card. I know that may be surprising. I think you'd be surprised by it, but it heals quite a lot. And remember how we said the whole buffing hand mechanic is it exists. It's not like you're not getting a lot of value out of it, but it exists. And this is a guy that will do something a little bit extra with that, not just from the taunt, not just from the excellent stat distribution to be buffed, but also from the heal as well.
Sure.
So yeah, 5-mana 2/7 taunt, not the best thing in the world, but it'll at least deal like its damage twice, right? It'll deal 4 damage before it dies, even in like the worst case scenario. And in the best case scenario, it could save your life.
Right. So if you look at something like Antique Healbot, right? Antique Healbot is gonna, on average, heal you for less, and because it doesn't have taunt, it doesn't like dink. It doesn't damage their minions, right? So basically, like if you think about how much better this is than Antique Healbot.
Yeah, if you count the 7 health as healing on top of it.
Right, and you should. You definitely should. So this heals you significantly more than Antique Healbot, and it forces their board to hit into it, which is typically what you want in a heal. So yeah, like if Antique Healbot is like a certain score, this should be significantly higher, which it is. I think it's reflected in that within the tier list. Yep.
Antique Healbot's pretty low. It's a 40. But this is like 10 points higher about.
Which I totally agree with.
Yeah, because it also has 2/7 worth of stats, as opposed to 3/3, and it taunts, which works on the board too. Okay, so that's what these cards are, and they're going to be okay, but it's not great, and that's the thing, right? Warrior needs them to be great. Warrior needs to be great. And one more thing about Warrior that's going to really suck in this meta is there's no 2s. And when you have no 2-drops, what do you do as a Warrior? You need 2-drops as Warrior. You need so many 2-drops. You need like 7 2-drops. You don't have 2-drops. They're not your class cards. You need them from your neutral cards, and you're not going to get them. And you don't have a comeback mechanism, right? Like, your hand buff stuff is not a comeback mechanism. You only have really one card that does that. And your weapons are not a real comeback mechanism because they hurt you while you're coming back. So it's a pretty crappy comeback mechanism. And your Fool's Bane doesn't have an offering bonus. That was your one kind of like common comeback mechanism.
Yeah. All right. So, are you ready to move on to the epics, or do you have more?
I mean, the Warrior's gonna suck.
Advice? Yeah.
Like, I know people look at like Druid and they're like, oh, your cards are unplayable. At least Warrior gets some playable cards. Yeah, but the meta is gonna so turn against the Warrior.
Yep. And Warrior is always more volatile as a class to these sort of like swings, right? In terms of being a good or a bad class, because they don't have that stabilizing hero power. Their hero power does nothing. So when they have OP cards and they have cards to play, the hero power, it doesn't really matter. When the cards are really bad, like they don't have a hero power to fall back on, and their weaknesses get exposed in the worst ways possible.
Yep. Epics.
Epics. First epic card. Woo! 2-mana spell. Sleep with the Fishes. Deal 3 damage to all damaged minions. What's the score here?
The score is a 49. It is okay.
It is okay. Look, this is something that we have seen in which boards are never as clean as you think they will be, right? People tend to overestimate the cleanness of boards in terms of like, I put down a minion, you put down a minion, like there's a trade, and this it just repeats over and over again. And if you are able to deal 3 damage to just one thing, that's like a Dark Bomb, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, it is conditional. You can hit your own minions as well. There are times when this card is just dead. That's why it's not high. But
it's rarely ever just dead. Because it's dead, it's only for like a turn or two. Because if you like don't have the border or whatever, right? Like they're gonna eat your minions, and then you just use this card and clean up.
Yep.
It is epic. No one will play around it. It does the job.
Congratulations with the surprise factor. Yeah. So next we have Brass Knuckles, which is a 4-mana, 2-attack, 3 durability weapon. After your hero attacks, you have a random minion in your hand. +1/+1. I'm actually really curious to know the score of this.
You want to repeat your miracle with stolen goods?
I'm too tired now.
Okay.
That was it. I used all my energy there.
You used that on stolen goods. That was the cards you picked. Okay, it's a 61, which is pretty low for a weapon, but it is still like above average. You take it over a Yeti. Right.
So the basic philosophy that we've always had is weapons are really, really good. So that score might still be a little bit too high for some people who look at it and they're just like, this weapon is bad, right? And it is bad for a weapon, but it is still a weapon, and it has an additional effect as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problems are there. Like, it doesn't deal enough damage. 3 charges is not great because you want to get all of the ability, but if you're a warrior, you might want to equip a different weapon sooner than you can use up all 3 charges. So it is awkward.
Yep, it's very awkward.
Yeah.
It is good that you do get to sometimes play the minion on the turn that you play this card. So that +1/+1, it may not be lost tempo for your first turn.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it for the epics. Legendary
right.
is Hobguard Grapple Hammer. It is a 63.
What? Hobguard?
Hobart Grapple Hammer.
Okay, great.
It is a 63. Good card. We'll take it again.
Card.
Give all weapons in your hand and deck +1 attack. You're going to have some weapons. You're going to end up drawing them. +1 attack on weapons, like, hits them twice. Because your weapons hit twice. 2 mana 2/2 is not awful. You need 2s in this meta. All good.
All good, man. That's Warriors. They got pretty shafted this expansion. It was bound to happen, guys. They couldn't go expansion after expansion with premium cards. Mm-hmm. It's been a nice run, Warriors. Good to know ya. All right.
Let's power through this. One last class.
On to we saved the best for last, guys. And by best, I mean nothing to do with that definition.
I was about to say, it's not the worst.
We got Hunters. So let's dig right into it. Once again, we want to see how the 3 common cards are going to affect the playstyle of the Hunter. First card, oh my gosh. I know I've been saying, like, this card is one of my favorites, that card is one of my favorites. I think this is, okay, like, this is my favorite card. Alley Cat.
You know, all the cards that you say favorite have tusks?
Wow.
I'm just saying, maybe you're the one with the weird thing.
See, but I guess it's subliminal, you know? Like, I guess I don't even see it. Why does a cat have tusks? Anyways.
I don't know. It's probably like just the whatever teeth, right? I don't know. Saber-tooth tiger. It's a baby saber-tooth tiger. There we go.
Oh, okay. I guess they have really dangerous alley cats. Regardless, alley cat or beast possessed villager, 1 mana, 1/1. It is a beast, and battle cry summon a 1/1 cat, and it summons a tabby cat. Can you pull up the tabby cat? I think everyone. Oh my god! All right,
website does not allow for that feature. It should.
It really should. Anyways,
we'll try to add it.
It summons another 1/1 beast as well. So it's basically like a possessed villager, except if the possessed villager had a double demon tag or something, right?
And is a battle cry instead of a death rattle. It's really like the druid thing.
Right. Yeah,
the druid spell that creates 2 1/1 trees, but they're like beasts.
Right. Living roots.
Yeah.
So this is a good card. This is
a 65.
Yes,
this is a quite amazing card.
Yeah. And I've always said this: Hunters, in order to win, need 1-drops.
Yes.
They absolutely need 1-drops. You can have a super, a great curve, good value cards, But if you don't have any 1-drops, you're probably not making it that far in the arena. Like, that's how important 1-drops are to Hunter. And this is a premium 1-drop, which is really what Hunter thrives upon.
Yep. And you know what? People don't really have 2-drops anymore. And they're going to favor 3-2s over 2-3s. So it's pretty good against a 3-2. And if they miss their 2-drop, you have a 1-2-3.
Yep.
You're doing pretty well as a Hunter. So one of the things is, like, Jade doesn't really get rolling until later on in the game. Your buff hand mechanics has that, like, turn 8 thing going on. Your, like, mage aside with that, like, 2 damage remove everything thing. Even, like, the warlocks and the priests, they don't really get going until later on if you keep control of the board. So there's space here for the Hunter to operate. And ADWCTA really is very good. 65 is insane. Haunted Creeper's a 67, to give you an idea, like in Hunter. Like 65 is...
Yes. Really good, as it should be. And this takes into consideration the importance of 1-drops.
Yep.
So next card, we have a 1-mana spell called Smuggler's Crate. It gives a random beast in your hand +2/+2.
You're going to give it to the ADWCTA, aren't you?
Well, you should draft a lot of ADWCTAs. But yes. Look, what's the score for this?
It's a 31. Don't take it. Even if you have, like, beasts, you're just spending 1 mana that you need to combo to give it +2/+2.
Right. It's worth it if you have a beast in your hand. If you don't have a beast in your hand, you can't really use it. Even if it was give a random minion in your hand +2/+2, I'd be like, it's okay, it's decent, right? Like it's all right, it's decent.
Below average.
The fact that it's give a random beast in your hand +2/+2,
and you can't even give your animal companions +2/+2.
You can't, exactly. Anyways, so that's Smuggler's Crate. Kind of a disappointment after we've had the amazing card that is ADWCTA.
Oh man, you know who hates ADWCTAs?
Who?
Camels.
Oh my! The camo is so cruel. It tears the ADWCTA away from the tabby cat.
Yup.
Wow.
Camels are assholes.
The sadness in this game. It's wow. I wish you hadn't told me that. Damn.
What?
Shaky
just don't take
Zip
camels.
Gunner. Shaky Zip Gunner is the next card. 3 mana, 3/3 with the Death Rattle. Give a random minion in your hand +2/+2.
Hey, this is like that warrior card. It is also rated a 52. That warrior card may be like a tiny bit above or below it. I forget, but it's basically the same thing. It's like where a 2-drop would be. It's existent. You'll take it sometimes. And it's a 3/3. Remember how good 3/3s are? 3/3s are good. Look at 3/3s. They kill 4/3s. It may seem overpowered because it gives +2/+2 and it doesn't really lose that many stats, but it's a death rattle. So you have a little less control over it. It'll come like a turn later, generally, unless you get to trade this away. And worst of all is later on when you have 2 minions in your hand and nothing else, and you want to play both of them because you need the tempo, and especially as a hunter, you can't anti-tempo. All of a sudden, this guy gets killed and doesn't buff anything.
Right. Yep. So it's I am a little bit I guess not surprised at the score. You know, by thinking how powerful it could be, I'm like, yeah, maybe it should be a little bit higher. But I definitely see what is bringing it down, right? When you look at these cards, people tend to go towards the extremes, right? They either really focus on the good in a card or they really focus on the bad in a card. And this is really easy to focus on the good and sort of not see all the ways that sort of cut against the +2/+2.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, these are the common cards. So how does it really impact the hunter? Look, thankfully they got a premium 1-drop, right? That is going to go a long way. But the other 2 cards, like, hunters just need good cards because, like, mechanically and just going with their win condition, hunter is a weak class, and they need basically overpowered cards like ADWCTA, like Glavezuka plus Web Spinner in one expansion to basically push them over the top, right? And this is why when we did see the offering bonus to like Glavezuka, they were actually a good mid-tier class, and ever since then they've sort of struggled because they haven't gotten weapons, they haven't gotten that many premium cards. I think we're going to see pretty much the same here. Smuggler's Crate is pretty unfortunate to be offered to them as a common. Shaky Zip Gunner is going to be good, and Owlcat is going to be great, but it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah. I just noticed that there's an error in here when it comes to Shaky Zip Gunner and like to anything that gives a random minion a buff in your hand. There is an error here. So these cards are actually going to get a couple more points whenever this gets updated, which is probably going to be like on Thursday, like on release date or the day after release, whenever we get this thing up. So sure. I'm going to put this in tonight. But so it's going to change by, and I kid you not, this is like literally like I'm doing this by hand right now, to try to see what the number will be. 1 point. About 1 point is how much Shaky Zip Gunner is going to move up, and I'd be surprised if the Warrior card moves up by more than that. Also.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's gonna be like a 53 instead of a 52 when all is said and done. But yeah, basically same idea.
Yep. All right. So I think we could move on to the rare cards for Hunter. First, we have a secret. Another amazing Hunter secret called Hidden Cache, where after your opponent plays a minion, give a random minion in your hand +2/+2. What went into the design of this card? I don't really
make
get
a
it.
Secret. We want to give a +3/+3. Oh no, testing showed that that's overpowered, but we can't change the mana cost to a Hunter secret. Let's make it a +2/+2 instead.
I think you nailed it, man.
I know how Blizzard works.
Wow. So what's the score for this?
It's a 23.
Okay. Yeah.
It's better than Stolen Goods.
I can't believe it. Oh, for 2 mana, it only gives a +2/+2 delayed. Anyways, I think that score is very acceptable. Moving on, we have we're coming to a good card. The Trog Beast Rager, a 2 mana 3/2 with the battle cry, give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. And the Trog Beast Rager follows sort of in the footsteps of like the King Zealot and the Kind Grandmother, that the Hunter tends to get these like slightly overvalued or slightly better 2-drops, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the score for this one?
The score for this is a 62.
Quite good. Even if you don't get the beast, fine. You're gonna play the 2 mana 3/2. It's what you sort of expect for that mana. And if you get a +1/+1 off of your 2 mana 3/2, that's huge. That's really, really good.
The problem is that it's not a beast itself. It could have been so high. It could have challenged King Zealot's throne. But
definitely, yeah.
But it's not a beast, so it's not as good as a Kindly Grandmother. You need your beast in Hunter, and this doesn't quite do it. It requires a beast.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Dispatch Kodo. 4 mana for a 2/4 body. Wonder if that sounds familiar to you guys. With Battle Cry, deal damage equal to this minion's attack. So, guys, Keeper of the Grove didn't die in this game. It just got reincarnated as a Kodo. I guess that's how nature works. And it's a beast now. But this is a good card. What's the score?
It is the best common/rare 4 mana card in Hunter. It's a 66.
It's just really
it's
good.
Just the same as a piloted Shredder, which is how it should be. The good part is you can buff it up, right? You have some ways to buff it up as a Hunter in your hand.
And without buffs, I mean, this is just...
It's good without buffs.
A really good...
With buffs, oh my god, right? And the Hunter buff is like what? It's like a +2/+2, right? In the Death Rattle?
Yes.
And then the Beast buffs are all +2/+2 or something like that. So you would deal 4 damage and have a 4/6 for 4 mana. Like, if you get it to trigger on this thing, hey, game over, right?
Game over. It's insane. So yes, look, what the hunter sort of the disappointment with the smuggler's crate and the hidden cache, it's sort of made up for with the beast rager and the dispatch coda. Anyways, so I'll ask you,
think
ADWCTA,
that's the problem. I think they made these really good cards that can take advantage of the buffs, and so they couldn't give the buffs to the hunter. But like without buffs, because the buff receivers are the combo cards. The buffs are generally useful. So
yeah,
you're now in this problem where in arena it just all kind of sucks.
Yeah, definitely. I got you. Wow, you're like 3 a.m. ADWCTA really gets into the mind of Blizzard.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is when I channel the inner Blizzard.
Anyways, so now that we've gone through the common and rare cards, do you have advice for aspiring hunter players in this expansion?
Go face. Keep going
Gotta go
face.
face, man.
Never stop going face, because you know what's going to happen? This turn 8 push, you're not the one making it.
Well, you're trying to make the turn 5 or turn 6 push.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because if you get to turn 8, it's like the Firelands Portal meta for like every single class.
Yeah.
Like as the hunter, you get to turn 8, they're pushing on you, you're not pushing back. So don't lose the board and pick up every 2-drop you get. Which is good, right? Because you have some 2-drops in your class cards. So you'll be okay on the curve compared to other classes.
All right. So, moving on to the epic cards. First card is Rat Pack, which is a 3-mana 2/2 beast. They really are providing the beast, which is good. So 3-mana 2/2 beast with Death Rattle. Summon a number of 1/1 rats equal to this minion's attack. So, if you haven't buffed it, it is a 2/2 minion, and it summons 2 separate 1/1 rats. And the rats are beasts, so you get like tons and tons of beasts with this. If you give it a buff of +1/+1, for example, with the Trog Beast Rager, then for 3 mana you get a 3/3, and when it dies you get 3 1/1 beasts. So what's the score?
So it's a 67. Infested Wolf is a 61. Infested Wolf is the 4-mana version of Rat Pack.
Yeah.
And the difference in the value is based on this synergy, right? You buff it, it goes amazing, and at least in this, you have a chance of buffing it.
Yep. And it's just a really good card. Like, the amount
keep
of...
in mind, keep in mind, this is one of those Death Rattle buffs. It's so much easier to buff, right? Like, you can get, like, a Wolf, and it'll buff this. You can get like a Stormwind Champion and it'll buff this. You can get a Shatter Sun Cleric and it'll buff this. This is buffable. This is very, very, very buffable.
Yep. Definitely. So let's sort of look at the other epic card, which is also going to be quite a good card. 5-mana Piranha Launcher. It's a weapon. So 5 mana for a 2-attack, 4 durability weapon. Whenever your hero attacks, summon a 1/1 Piranha. And the 1/1 Piranha is a beast. So during this expansion, we have 3 1/1 tokens, and they're all beasts. We have a Tabby Cat from the Alley Cat. We have a rat from the Rat Pack, and we also have a Piranha from the Piranha Launcher. If there is a theme for hunters this expansion, it is 1/1 tokens. But what is the score for this?
It is an 80.
Yep.
A proud 80 that puts it above everything else that the hunter has access to, except for Call of the Wild, obviously. And a couple other weapons. Eagle Horde Bow's a little better, and ADWCTA is better, obviously.
ADWCTA is just ridiculous. So you can see a theme here, and this card was one of the most controversial cards when we released the initial video. So part 1, and if you stuck along this for this long, wow. First of all, thank you. Second of all, I don't know, man. Anyways, Piranha Launcher accomplishes so much of what a hunter wants to do, which is get damage. And even though it is divided up into many turns, you're not killing them on this turn or the next turn probably anyways, right? It puts down the 1/1s, and one common criticism is the 1/1s aren't going to do anything. The 1/1s do a ton.
They do so much.
They do so much. Not only do they give you a guaranteed beast activator every single turn.
Yeah, you can't remove that beast. Or like you could remove the 1/1, but they're just going to get another one.
Right.
For 4 turns in a row, you get a beast. So any kind of beast things just work.
it forces a removal on their end because a lot of times you want them to not take care of the beast.
Yep.
Because you
They
are
have to kill it, otherwise you get
right.
even more face damage.
You are the aggressor, and in the instances in which you are being under attack and you piranha launcher to defend, you're dead anyways. As a hunter, your win condition is very clear. You are either the aggressor, you either grab the board early, transition to sort of this all-in play by turn 5, turn 6, or you lose. There is no alternative win condition for you. Yes. And Piranha Launcher helps you with your win condition so much. The 1/1s, the fact that it's 5 mana for 8 damage, really, really good. Yeah.
So, yeah, like, it doesn't look... Like, people compare it to Assassin's Blade. 1, wrong class, right? Wrong hero. And 2, there's a concept called the clock, right? Like, you put your opponents on a clock or, like, whatever. And hunters automatically put people on a much quicker, much, like, smaller clock. You have less turns to live when you're facing a hunter. So Piranha Launcher creates a situation in which your opponent will lose 4 health every turn. Assassin's Blade creates a situation where your opponent will lose 3 health every turn. That is a ridiculously big difference. That's not just like plus 33% damage worth of difference. That's the reasons why Pyroblast can be 10 mana for 10 damage and be okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise 10 mana for 10 damage is such a bad stat. Like, you get like 8 damage for like 5 mana, right? Like, why would you double that to get 2 more damage? It exists and it is okay because of this burst. So this isn't like burst on 1 turn. It is burst over 4 turns. But even at 3 turns, it's okay. And every turn, it punts an attack. So you get more turns to keep using your hero power. It
prolongs your turns.
Exactly, which you kind of need because you're playing this card. So you kind of want to get enough like damage onto them. It's just, I think people like vastly underrate this card and just how much it fits so well with what the Arena Hunter wants to do always, no matter how you're doing this. Like, keep in mind, Cobra Shot was a playable card. That was 5 mana, only dealt 3 damage to the face, and put the same amount of tempo out there as you have with this card in the very first turn.
In the very first charge.
And then you have like 3 more free charges. Like, sure, Cobra Shot was definitely below average, but like that's why this is so good.
Right. Because you still have 3 more charges of this after your initial charge.
And remember, they're on a small clock. Every damage you deal to them is way more meaningful than from any other class.
Right. As a hunter, you get to a point where, yes, 2 damage is not a lot, but you want to make your first 4 turns or first 5 turns, basically before you play this, to set it up so that the 2 damage and the 1/1 Piranha, it puts an immense amount of pressure on them. And this is why we keep on saying that Hunter is actually a very skillful class. Like, it's a very, very hard class to play in the arena. It takes a lot of turn planning, and it takes a lot of like very careful considerations. And it's so punishing when you make a mistake about going face or trading in the early turns.
Like, I know like people are wondering why like it's a weird like minion / face damage kind of combination. But like, think about it this way: you're emptying out your hand as a hunter around like turn 5, right? And what happens when you empty out your hand? You have more minions than they do. They have like 1 attacker, 2 attackers on the board. You have like 3, 4, 5 things on the board, and this just adds that extra body that will turn into face damage because it's going to take them a lot longer to clear your minions. Like, it all like that 1/1 is deceptive as all hell when it comes to like how useful it actually is for the hunter to go face. All right, that's enough for this.
Knuckles.
We're done with Knuckles. This is our last class card, and then we can be done with this section.
Knuckles is the Hunter Legendary, 5 mana for a 3/7 beast. Once again, after this minion attacks, after this attacks a minion, it also hits the enemy hero. Cobra Shot is not dead, guys. It turned from a spell into a real boy, and by real boy I mean a flamboyant monkey with rings.
Gorilla.
Sorry, flamboyant gorilla with bling.
59 is its score. It's better than a Yeti, but you know, it's not like amazing or anything.
No.
It does have to hit a minion to get its like reach.
Right.
And it could just hit face.
Okay,
like,
right?
Like, it doesn't actually get extra face damage. It does not have extra reach. It just allows you to like do both.
Right. which is has some
useful.
value. Yeah, has some value.
All right. That's it for Hunter. I don't know what to say about it. It's not a good class in this expansion, but it's not awful either. Like, we're not at warrior level. We're not at druid level. We're going to be okay as a hunter. You always have that, like, out, right? Like, you always have that face out. And because a lot of people are going to lose the board, and a lot of people are not going to have 2-drops, and a lot of people are going to play this 4-3 that gets cleared pretty easily, and a lot of people are going to wait for that turn 8 push. You're in a pretty good spot meta-wise.
You are? Okay. That is it for part 4. If you've made it this far, thank you. In part 5, we'll be talking about all the neutral cards, sort of wrapping things up.
Yeah.
That's it. Any parting words?
Huge shout out again to the Lightforge developer programmer that's helping us with the website. Really a lot of work went into this week and the week before that, and also Altar Slayer, our mod/artist that made these wonderful looking icons. You have the little signs, you have the little houses. So thank you guys, and for the people who are watching this live on Twitch, we are now into literally our 4th hour of streaming. We have not stopped. This is all one take if you're watching this on YouTube, and we are getting energy from the chat. So thank you, chat. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the sub button. If you're watching this on Twitch, hit the follow button. And if you're wondering where this tier list is, it's thelightforge.com. That's it.
See you guys in part 5.